Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So, really quick, we didn't see my episode on, and I'm gonna mess up this name, the Archimandrite. Let's go with that. At last, we finally have this commander. It is finally here. What kind of a commander is it? Well, you've got to check that episode out to find out, but don't leave just yet, because on this episode, well, Oh, yeah, that was like a very bad, like, evil, but not evil. I don't even know. I don't know what I was going for there. It's early. Anyways, let's jump into it after you blame Eddie in the comments below, because even though Eddie just does a great job helping out, blame Eddie. It's always Eddie's fault. Anyways, let's jump into it. My goodness, this card is finally here, and it's quite fantastic. Sardian Avenger, a 1/1 Goblin Warrior with First Strike and Trample. Now you might be saying, okay, what in the world? Why Trample for a 1/1? Well, we'll get to that here in a second. Anyways, it costs 1 in red, and it says, whenever it attacks, it gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the number of artifacts your opponents control. Gross right away, but also, whenever an artifact an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, Sardian Avenger deals 1 damage to that player. Ha 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 ha. Oh, hey, you know those players that, you know, have loved treasures over the past couple of years that just fill the board with an incredible amount of treasures? This is how you punish them for their wrongdoings. Because, yeah, there is a certain, goblin that has the exact same mana cost as this that, well, has been causing problems for some, and this says, you know what? Time to show you what a real goblin can do. The truly great part about the design of this card is, well, I mean, it punishes your opponents in multiple ways, essentially, and they're kind of in a no-win situation if they're like, yeah, I want to make a bunch of treasures. Oh no, if I make a bunch of treasures and keep them out, well, you can smack me for a ton with this First Strike trampling 1/1 that is going to get absolutely massive because, again, it counts every single artifact your opponents control, which obviously is, you know, mana rocks, obviously, for, you know, whoever's playing those. And then also, yeah, for treasures, for, yeah, those treasures that your opponents are making, clues, all those, all the above, every single artifact. Hey, this can easily get, you know, +20 power at a certain point. So, yeah, this thing can be absolutely massive, be a huge threat, trample through for some damage. And if your opponent's like, wait, I'll solve the issue. I've got these treasures. I'll use them so this gets smaller when it attacks. The only problem with that is then this says, you know what? For sacrificing that treasure, I'm going to ping you. So now every single one of those treasures just might as well have on it, you know, take 1 damage at a mana, which is a lot worse than, you know, not taking a damage, obviously. So this little goblin can do a ton of work for you and, yeah, again, really punish those friends that you have that have been obnoxious with their treasures lately. Another thing to keep in mind, and I don't believe actually I put any cards in the episode, unfortunately, for this, but yeah, I probably should mention this real quick. Yeah, extra combat with this is quite fun. So yeah, if you've got any kind of an extra combat commander, any kind of an extra turn, you know, and extra turns. Oh, gross. Yeah, not extra turns, extra combat. If you got any kind of, you know, deck that benefits from extra combat spells, obviously, it attacks, you know, gets that pump effect that is going to stay until the end of the turn. And if you attack with it again, it's going to get, you know, twice as big, essentially. So, yeah, obviously, extra combats work well with this. Additional punishing effects work with it, and we're going to talk about those here in a bit. Yeah, this is a very exciting card to see because, hey, you know that one card that you're probably thinking of right now that I'm going to bring up right now that this punishes really badly? Let's talk about that one. Hey, Dockside Extortionist. Ha! A 1/2 Goblin as well. Pirate for the exact same mana cost as our new card again, 1 and a red. This one has enters the battlefield to create X treasure tokens or X the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. So yeah, this card is a menace to many out there. Yeah, it is pretty obnoxious. It's just basically, hey, 2 mana. Whoa, I created 20 treasures. Look how clever I am. Okay, that was a bit harsh, but yeah, there are a lot of players out there that very much don't like this card, and our brand new Goblin, Sardian Avenger, says, I am the champion here for you! Except, Sardian Avenger doesn't sound like, the Tick, apparently. No, anyone know the Tick out there? No? Okay. Spoon! Maybe it does. Regardless, yeah, I mean, this thing has been a menace for a while now, and now this is just a great way to punish that player. The player who has the audacity to say, you know what, I would like 20 treasures because I need my 20 treasures. And then you're going to say, okay, you can choose to either keep those around, I'm going to smack you for 21 with my little goblin, or you can sacrifice them and take a ton of damage. And if you don't sacrifice them, well, maybe I'll just Vandal Blast and then take out all of the artifacts, punishing everyone, and also really punishing you the most because, yeah, all of those treasures are going to go bye-bye. You're going to take a ton of damage, probably take you out for your greed. And speaking of greed, yeah, I mean, the card that kind of started off this whole treasure fiasco, at least one of them, Smothering Tithe, yeah, gross. Whenever an opponent draws a card, the player may pay 2. If the player doesn't, you create a colorless treasure token. So, yeah, this one can obviously make that player an absurd amount of treasures in the game, but again, that is going to just pump your goblin, make it deadlier, and if they try to get rid of those treasures or just utilize them, yeah, they're going to take damage for that too, so they're going to be taking themselves out. And again, if they don't take themselves out, you can take them out with a Vandal Blast or whatnot too. Next up, I mean, yeah, there's a ton of things these days that make a ton of treasures. Stormkiln Artist. Whenever you cast or copy an instant sorcery spell, create a treasure token. This card can be ridiculous, especially in a Storm deck. I mean, it has Storm in the name. Yeah, so just casting a ton of instant sorceries, copying them, making an absurd amount of treasures. Now you get to punish that player for their audacity. And I can't believe I referenced the Tick earlier, but yeah, that's where we're going with this episode. Spoon! I mean, the list can go on and on and on these days. Yeah, treasures have been getting a bit ridiculous. Wizards, hopefully, is learning their lesson and slowing down, but yeah, I mean, it's not too late, obviously, but yeah, you're probably going to be seeing more and more of these punishing effects for the players that are using and abusing treasures a bit too much, so yeah, hopefully more Sardian Avenger type cards are coming out at some point. But yeah, I mean, Tireless Provisioner. Yeah, whenever a land enters battlefield under control, create a food. No one does that. Or a treasure token. Okay, very few decks do that. I mean, like the Master Chef decks do that. But yeah, the vast majority of decks out there are getting lands into play, making a ton of treasures. And who doesn't like getting lands into play and then getting extra free mana with treasures? So yeah, punishing them, great. Bootlegger Stash. This just basically is quite funny. Lands you control have tap, create a treasure token. So Sardian Avenger, you know, kind of makes this into a very funny choice for that player. Hey, you can use your lands normally and not take any damage. Or hear me out, you can use your lands with this card and make treasure tokens. You know, you can store that man up. Sure, you can do that. But if you do that, my Avenger is going to be coming your way for a ton of damage. And also, when you sacrifice those, you're going to be taking a ton of hits. I was going to say life loss, but pings. You're going to get damaged. Yeah. And of course, yeah, Brass's Bounty, a massive amount of, you know, treasures at once. There's plenty of ways to make a ton of treasures these days. So yeah, treasures can become quite obnoxious, quite kind of, yeah, obnoxious is probably the right word. Anyways. And of course, there are commanders that Sardian Avenger punishes in, yeah, Prosper. Look out, Prosper, because here comes the Sardian Avenger. A 1/4 Tiefling Warlock that has Death Touch at the beginning of your end step. Exile top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. Pact Boon. Whenever you play a card from exile, create a treasure token. Prosper. Oh no! One of your greatest strengths has become a weakness. No, Prosper! Don't know where that came from. More coffee, anyways. So, yeah, I mean, the more spells you cast from exile with a Prosper deck, the more treasures you get, which generally, again, is a great thing. But again, with this Avenger, you're just making that goblin deadlier. You're making it, you know, yourself more susceptible to taking even more damage, whether you sacrifice those treasures yourself or not. Again, if they get board wiped, you're taking a ton of damage. So this tiny little goblin can do a ton of work against some of the most popular commanders out there, or, you know, popular commanders, popular strategies. But yeah, I mean, Agnes, another, you know, treasure commander. Haste, whenever a creature you control, they haste attacks, create a trap treasure token. That can make you a ton of treasures in absolutely no time. Hey, Eddie, Old Gnawbone in your Ur-Dragon deck. Ha! I mean, okay, Old Gnawbone's also a commander, but more likely you're probably going to see it in an Ur-Dragon deck or, you know, Dragon Tribal deck. But yeah, this can create just an absurd amount of treasures. Whenever a creature controlled deals counter to a player, create that many treasure tokens. this can lead to some pretty crazy turns. And yeah, again, that player who's making an absurd amount of treasure tokens with Old Gnawbone, again, whether in a deck or whether in the 99 of a deck, yeah, now there is, again, a punishment for that. You are now going to get swung at by a giant goblin, and then when you sacrifice those treasures, take even more pain. Or I'll just destroy them for you. Anyways. Some commanders that might want to consider this, well, the first one that came to mind is most definitely Garrison Star and Kellermorph, a brand new commander. Well, pretty new. I mean, there's a lot of products this year. Anyways, Warhammer 40k commander. Ward 2, whenever another source you control deals exactly 1 damage to a permanent or player, Garrison Star and Kellermorph deals 2 damage to that permanent or player. So, now, with this little goblin in play, every single time one of your opponent's artifacts hits the graveyard, they take 3 total damage. 1 from the Avenger and 2 from your commander. And of course, as I talked about in the Garrison Star episode, if you haven't seen that one yet, make sure you go check that one out because I did a deck tech on this one. Yeah, I mean, giving it lifelink, giving it death touch. I mean, death touch doesn't really apply right here, but yeah, giving it lifelink can be a great way to gain an absurd amount of life. So if this has lifelink and your opponent sacrifices just 1 treasure, let's just say 1, okay? It takes 1 damage from your Avenger. It takes 2 damage from Garrison Star, and that's 3 damage in total. They just lightning bolted themselves for 1 mana, and you just gain 2 life too because your commander dealt that 2 damage. Yeah, I think Garrison Star is going to absolutely love this new card. And speaking of loving it, well, Torbrand Thane of Red Fell, a 2/4 Dwarf Noble that says if a red source you control deal damage to an opponent or a permanent opponent controls, it deals that much damage plus 2 instead. So yeah, I mean, cool. When you're attacking with your tiny little goblin that becomes massive, you get an extra 2 damage. Great. But of course, more importantly, whenever your opponent's artifacts hit the graveyard, this adds that 2 extra damage to it. So again, basically a lightning bolt worth of damage every single time one of their artifacts hits the graveyard. And of course, since you're in red again, yeah, you've got plenty of ways to destroy artifacts. So even if your opponents decide, well, I'm not going to sacrifice my treasures then, ha ha ha. Well, they obviously are going to take, more damage from your Avenger when it's swinging. And then also, yeah, you can still get rid of them and still lightning bolt them for each one of those treasures. I mean, just in general, a group slug deck is probably going to want to consider this card because, again, group slug decks love punishing players, including themselves, actually. I mean, but love punishing all players. And a card that actually, just punishes your opponents and really hurts them for, we're doing what they want to do, like our brand new Avenger, is fantastic. Mogus has beginning of each opponent's upkeep, Mogus deals damage to that player unless they sacrifice a creature. So, yeah, I mean, them sacrificing creatures is going to be good for you, obviously, because, well, actually, first up, if that is an artifact creature, they're going to be taking any damage for that. If it's just a regular creature, I mean, or even if it's an artifact creature, they're going to have less blockers for your giant goblin coming at them because, well, they just happen to put too many artifacts in play. And again, yeah, I mean, this amount of damage and all the amounts of damage that you're going to be utilizing in this kind of a deck, these repeatable effects, are going to add up throughout the game to take your opponents out quite quickly. Next up, yeah, I mean, keep in mind that this, brand new card, the Sardian Avenger, is a goblin and a low-to-the-ground goblin, and one that, again, can just do a lot on its own. So, yeah, add it to a goblin tribal deck like, Krenko Mob Boss. If, your opponents are utilizing a bunch of artifacts, cool. Punish them further, make more goblins, just have a fun time. Obviously, I mean, again, ironically, it's probably going to be played alongside, Dockside Extortionist in the same deck, which, again, is kind of ironic. But sure, if your opponents then have a Sardian Avenger themselves, you deserved it for playing Dockside. And I guess I should mention in a somewhat similar way, yeah, it is also a warrior. It is a goblin warrior. So sure, if you've got a warrior tribal deck with Angela, probably not, your broken, Nagila deck that, you're like, hey, yeah, let's just combo off and win as quick as possible. Maybe not, maybe. I mean, because again, maybe if your opponents are comboing with artifacts and graveyards and whatnot, maybe, but probably not. Anyways, Nagila has, whenever a warrior attacks, you may have its controller create a 1/1 white warrior creature token that's tapped and attacking. And by paying Wooburg, untap attacking creatures, they gain trample, lifelink, and haste until end of turn. After this phase, virtual combat phase, activate only during combat. So again, since the Avenger is a warrior, yes, you get that trigger. Yes, you get an extra warrior attacking. And again, like I mentioned, with extra combats, by paying that 5, Wooburg mana, essentially, giving your, well, first up, giving your goblin lifelink can be massive again. If that opponent has a ton of artifacts, you're going to be gaining a ton of life from that. And of course, again, being able to untap it and swing again is going to make it twice as large. So have fun with that. And speaking of fun, yeah, I mean, there actually is a commander that loves giving your opponents a ton of treasures with Vazi, Key Negotiator. Haste tap, target opponent creates X treasure tokens or X the number of treasure tokens you created this turn. You can absolutely do a ton of work with this. You can make a ton of treasures. You can give your opponents even more treasures, essentially. I mean, just by tapping, untapping, tapping, untapping, tapping, untapping. And yeah, when that player has just a glut of treasures and you've got your Sardian Avenger in play, they are going to be punished so much. Because actually, okay, first up, I should have probably mentioned this. Yeah, whenever an opponent casts a spell or activates an ability, if mana from a treasure was spent to cast or activate it, put a +1 counter to our creature, then draw a card. So yeah, if your opponent's already activating those treasures, we are going to get benefits from that. And yeah, if they don't, those treasures are going to stay around. Our goblin can hit for a ton of damage. And at some point, yeah, we can just cast a, an artifact wrath spell to just take out all the artifacts to punish them further and take them out. But now as this episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to give you my final thoughts on Sardian Avenger. Yeah, this tiny little goblin can do an absurd amount of work for you. Again, treasures can kind of become obnoxious, and they really have become a bit obnoxious lately and kind of taken over some games. So yeah, I mean, cards like Dockside Extortion, Smothering Tithe, etc., etc., etc. It's nice to finally have more ways to combat those kinds of cards, and Sardian Avenger is a fantastic one. Again, it punishes your opponents if they keep their treasures in play. It punishes your opponents if they use their treasures. And of course, there are ways to make this even more impactful, even more effective. Again, I mean, ways to just add additional damage like, Gyerson Starn or Torbrand, ways to, gain a ton of life from it, with lifelink, ways to get, extra combats and just actually, swing and make it even bigger, ways to just destroy your opponent's treasures that you, maybe even gave them at a certain point to punish them for that. So yeah, I'm hoping to see even more of these kinds of cards in the future to try to get treasures a bit more under control. And yeah, make sure on the lookout for even more exciting quick takes and spoilers coming up. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.